What's up, everybody? Welcome to another exciting edition of Ray. They can't figure out how to use his mic. Now we're here with MSP Community Live. Today, joining me is Matt Topper of ConnectWise and RMSP, founder of RMSP, and Kyle Spooner of MSP Geek and the recently inaugural conference of the MSP GeekCon. How you guys doing, gentlemen?
Doing awesome.
Amazing.
Cool. Awesome. So this is our third episode, I think, right? This is
third episode. Yep.
Yeah, that's not bad. We had Ashley on the first one with you and me, and then you and me last week, and now this week it's a whole new week. So Kyle, since this is your first one, I'll give you some background for anybody who hasn't seen this before, since it's a fairly new show. We're just going to be talking about the stuff that comes up in conversation in the MSP community. So Reddit, MSP Geek, IT Pool Party, MRU, Facebook, you name it. So as long as we're respectful, all things are on the table. With that said, Matt, how was your week this week, man? Or last week, better said.
Actually, pretty good. Got quite a bit done and accomplished, which is good for me. I don't know if anyone else cares about my productivity, but I would say I had a pretty nice week, actually. How about you guys?
Mine was pretty productive. I can't complain. We had a literal data center catch fire the week before, or the Friday before last. So we spent all last week getting people over. I mean, we had failover, but in true Ray fashion, I decided to be extra and light up 2 new data centers in addition to the failed one. So
do you mean actual fire or like
I mean
something
fuego.
broke?
This was New Jersey 004. So dedicated IT, dedicated data centers. It's an INAV facility, Sky Switch, myself. I mean, there's thousands of clients in there. It's a major data center in Secaucus, New Jersey, and they had a fire in their electrical room. Apparently, it took down the UPSs. Glenn says, flames were flaming. And whatchamacallit, it was a little insane. And because the fire inspector had to come in, check, I mean, they shut off the entire data center, which you guys know, shutting off a bunch of servers at one time, not good. And they had to do, it was like a couple of days of the fire inspector checking and the whole thing. And then once the fire inspector cleared on Tuesday, now they're doing remediation and they started re-energizing. But I'm not going to let my people wait for, I mean, we have backup plans and backup plans and backup plans. So we had 2 data centers we were bringing up last year. We had already been in the works. We planned to release them in 6 weeks anyway. We were already done with testing. So we just did it early and just that's it. It's
good failover test, right? Real life DR test.
Yeah, I can't complain. Not the first time fire marshal shut me down either. So I'm not gonna say it happens. What about you, Kyle? You do anything last week?
I feel like I did everything and yet nothing at the same time.
That happens.
It just feels like there's so much to do that I still haven't yet done. So it feels like I haven't really accomplished what I really want to accomplish.
You know, I have one real question. Regardless of all the technical stuff and all the personal stuff you did last week, I don't care about any of that. Mm-hmm. I want to know, did you test the damn caviar I sent you, dude?
Oh, I did that for a while ago. So sure. Yeah. Context. Ray and I had a conversation about caviar and he decided to send me some.
This was Valentine's Day. I didn't send to him for Valentine's Day. I was commenting how I got my wife. My wife got real into caviar and we were trying them out. And I was talking to Spooner, and Spooner says he'd never tried it before.
Nope. So we did try it right after you and I spoke for the second time. I've come to I've determined that my palate is not refined enough, and neither is my wife's, for the delicacy that is caviar. Which, hey, you learn, you live and learn.
You try it.
Yeah, I mean, if you try it, there's nothing wrong with it, and that was like the whole thing. Like anything, you get into this deep dive thing where it's like
chips are pretty good.
Oh, I sent him caviar from Marky's, who is it's like one of 2 places in the entire United States that can actually get real beluga. I did not send him beluga. But like their sturgeon
on me.
custom varietal of sturgeon. Like this is legit. And he's like, yeah, I like the blinis. They were cool. They were
Hey. Like my wife complains every time because no matter what restaurant we go to, I can find something to eat because like chicken fingers, steak, burger. That's like my 3 rotational things.
Do you go to the wine tastings for the oyster crackers?
So I've been to a wine tasting before, and I will try all the free alcohol someone will put in front of me. Nice. I may not like it,
right,
but I will drink it. But when it comes to food, that's a little different. I have a very specific picky. I'm not say picky. It's like I don't eat things that are green, according to my wife. She makes
like
all this
chicken
healthy
nuggets
stuff.
is basically.
I will down a plate of chicken nuggets. Not gonna lie. But like for instance, I went to a brewery that we have down by the house, and they serve food like any smart business would. Who has alcohol, and I ordered what they called Plankton's Revenge Burger.
Okay.
So it was a nice burger, which they've always had, with crab, macaroni, and cheese, Old Bay crab, macaroni, and cheese on top.
Oh, that sounds good.
It was okay.
I was waiting for that. For him to say, yeah, it was all right. I mean,
but I decided to go out of my comfort zone and try something new. And I wouldn't like if that's all they had, like I would eat it again. Like it wasn't bad, but if I had a preference to something a little more flavorful, I would have. It didn't really have any flavor. That was my problem with it. But I'm also a mac and cheese picky person.
Like I'll eat any food just about. I'm not picky at all. But as far as liquor, alcohol goes, there's like a narrow band of beers and liquors and wines that I'll drink.
Yeah. I mean, now, I'm on this like health kick. So like the food, I'm focusing more on the food. I'm not drinking my calories. I'm just tons of water and
it's good for you, man.
Yeah. I mean, bourbon's the exception, but bourbon's 100 calories a pour. So it's not bad.
Yeah. It's not that many calories.
Yeah. So, but we're not here to talk about, or maybe we are here to talk about food. Honestly, I don't even know anymore. But we're here to talk about some interesting stuff that's going on the MSP community, and the Reddits never disappoint. So let's see what we have here.
So we're talking about what RMM to pick, right?
Yeah. I figured we were going to pick how is S1 different from Huntress? I figured that's the safest one. Now we got, let's see, locked out of MSP partner account, thoughts on Nimble, no raise after a year with MSP. That seems like a fun one. Let's see, I had my sister 1 year. I had my 1 year employee review with my manager and VP. They said a lot of positive things. And the main issue was they want me to be more independent, aka not call as much for assistance. Fair. I'm an anxious person. Do I call? And I do call just to double check if I'm doing something right. So based on that, they said 3 months from now, we'll come back and see how well I'm doing. We could talk about a raise. Didn't think it was fair, but I honestly knew I wasn't going to quit or job hop. So the office is 10 minutes from my house, and I can use a company car. I'm saving on gas and time, but I'm curious if they were serious about the potential raise.
Before we get into the comments, let's have this, because
yeah. Go ahead.
I like this. This is a good one to start off with, for sure. The things that I like when I read their statement, they pointed out issues. They gave a timeline to when we could talk about a raise, even though you're not getting one now. Mm-hmm. And they've highlighted some things that they liked, or they felt positive in, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's not at all common to 90% of businesses.
Meaning you're giving them where to go. It's not a flat out no, but we're telling you what we need to get you there. Yeah,
exactly.
It's a real timeline.
And no, like I've experienced that maybe twice in my entire career, is when I've gotten, look, I'm not going to get, we don't feel you've earned the raise yet, but here's the path to get you to that raise.
So based on that, are you more? Go ahead, Ray.
No, I was going to ask, is that your takeaway too? Is, positive interaction overall?
That's definitely, that's a good part of the post. It's so hard to judge these. We're only getting one side of the interaction on this. But based on the poster's willingness to point out both the negative and the positive thing, I'm more inclined to take it seriously. But to echo Kyle's point, I do think it was fair. We don't know exactly to what degree things need to improve, or if he's asking for, I shouldn't say he, if the poster is asking for questions on everything or all, we just don't know. We don't have the information as to what the actual performance related to expectations is. But the fact that, like Kyle mentioned, it wasn't a hard no. I'm inclined to say that probably was fair based only on the information we have.
You're muted.
I'd be drinking if I wasn't. Whatchamacallit, and that's kind of a fair thing. I mean, that's my thing. You can say no, but as long as you have clear expectations, it's good for everybody, right? Like that's the kind of thing. And to be fair, it's money's getting a little tighter for some businesses, so not reasonable. They may not be ready to improve now or to raise now, but I also like that, it seems like they knew exactly where this employee stood. And I'm guessing at a lot of this, obviously, but they knew exactly where the employee stood. They knew the areas for improvement that employee needed to accomplish. And honestly, 3 months is a short timeline. Like our normal reviews are every 6 months. But if you don't hit a mark or whatever, it's 6 months again until we're, reestablishing that, with some exceptions, of course.
Yeah. But if an employee
even 1 year wouldn't be that weird.
But if an employee came up to you and was like, "Hey, can we review this in 3 months?"
Oh yeah,
you'd be open to it.
Absolutely. So, anyone want to take any guesses on how the sub responded? I figure that could make a fun game by itself. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna go with the top comment's going to be a well-reasoned conversation.
Okay.
The rest of the comments below that are going to be find a new job. Your company sucks.
And then there will be some downvoted ones at the very bottom that were agreeing with the business side.
Yeah.
So this is a little surprising. So we have top comment right in line with what you're saying. Honestly, there are a lot of smaller companies having some real struggles. Hold on, I'm sure it'll come. But some of the rest too. Things are uncertain. Be happy you have stable employment. The market's definitely infinitely hot. Just wait it out. Couldn't agree with this more. Depends on the area. I can quit today, start 10 companies tomorrow. Do it and they'll fire the fucking new guy soon enough. Deliver value, not entitlement. Kind of like that one. But it looks like I don't see a lot of quit. You can do better elsewhere. There are some salient points. Keep in mind that with inflation, no raise in 1 year means your wages are now less, and that's absolutely true.
Yep.
Yeah. We should sort by controversial on these.
Right? That would be phenomenal. So, and then we got this one. In 3 months, it'll probably be another excuse. I think that's the one we were all waiting for, right?
Yep.
Downvoted right away.
That is a definite major concern for this individual.
Yeah.
And this goes for anyone. If your company sets you up with the timeline and you follow that timeline and it's constantly getting pushed back with what appears to be vague or unreasonable expectations, at that point, the standards are being set and your expectations are being set to where it's not going to happen. And then you might want to look at possibly finding another career path.
Yeah. So Tim brings up a good point, saying that brings up a deeper subject: how annual reviews are conducted. Was the human given clear KPIs? That's not wrong, right? Like he should have been given from day one KPIs he's trying to get to. So I wonder about that.
Based on the post itself, I would almost disagree, because it wasn't the KPIs that weren't met. I believe the person who gave the review felt that he had to be handholded. The individual had to be handholded too much, which after a year, I can see why that's frustrating.
Yes.
And you want to put something, a mark. You should be doing one-on-ones anyway, but if you're not doing one-on-ones as a company, you want to put a timeline to be able to, right, look, you need to start distancing yourself and feel more self-confident in yourself. And how can we work on that together? And then in 3 months, if things have improved, we'll bump you up.
So Keith has a comment here. As an owner, I went 4 years without a raise. Lord knows I've been there. But at the same time, we signed up for that, right? Like as owners, I knew that going into it. That's my fault. That has nothing to do with the employees, in my opinion. And then there's I didn't see it in the thread, but I'm very surprised because this one is on every one of these threads, right? You could be asking about AV and they're like, just start your own company, this doesn't seem to be like somebody that's being unreasonable. They just want expectations. I don't hate it.
No, it's a good post. Good start off.
Yeah, good way to start. All right, let's see what else we got. There was a cool conversation in Geek. You guys just opened the MSP vCIO channel recently. And the very first conversation was, are folks generally including budgeting as part of your vCIO services? And I thought that was a pretty cool one too. What do you guys say? You guys both, Kyle, your current MSP, Topper, you were previously MSP. What do you say? What do you say?
An MSP, we do not currently have any vCIOs.
Okay.
However, we do have account managers.
Yeah.
Whose job does require them to build out budgets. So we do want that action to be happening because as we're a bigger MSP, I forget that constantly myself, but for any client, if you have a budget, you can start shutting down the constant objections about, well, I just replaced a machine yesterday. This one's also breaking. This is ridiculous. Well, we planned for this project last year. Now we have the budget for it. Let's go ahead and do it. You start shutting down and you become, as every MSP should be, more proactive and less reactive, which should be the ultimate goal for any MSP. The more reactive you are, the less profitable you are, the less happy your customers are, and the more difficult it is on your entire company.
If you're not budgeting, what are you doing as a vCIO? As part of your planning, you should be talking about your upcoming projects. Here's this thing that needs to be replaced. Here's this migration you have to do, upgrade, whatever. And if you're just doing that without a budgetary estimate, you don't have to get the proposal down to the dollar. You talk it's going to be 5 or 10K and get that on the client's radar. That's what you need to be doing. I mean, I would question what is a vCIO if you're not doing budget. And I think Tim made that comment. The definition of vCIO is a problem or a thing we struggled with for quite a while as far as differences between vCIO, account manager, and the position we call technical account manager. They all had different and somewhat overlapping definitions depending on who you asked and when you asked them.
So that brings up a good point. In my experience, in my conversations, every single position inside of an MSP, the title of that individual is different to every other MSP.
There's Keith's comment about titles or marketing.
A tier 1 technician is different to me than it is to you two. Tier 2, tier 3 CEO is sometimes different. Even vCIO, account manager, technical account manager, like those are all. An account manager to me is someone so I separate them into soft relationship and hard relationship.
Okay.
To where the soft relationship is doing the warm and fuzzy, building up the trust and the confidence. Hey, look, here's a problem with your ticket. I'm going to go help you resolve it. Or here's a problem with an invoice. The hard relationship is I'm your technology partner. You and I are going to build trust together in technology. I separate them into those two. Now, all of those positions can lean on those two aspects in different ways. Like an account manager to me would be more soft than hard. And the vCIO or technical account manager would be a more of the technical side and less of the soft relationship side.
So I would agree with that. I would call account managers almost primarily a sales type position. They're the people you go to with this tech had a problem, I need to complain about them, and they're the people that try to upsell you to the rest of your stack. your optional components, and
So
you leave the hard technical conversations to your TAM or vCIO or whatever you call that position.
So I have a vendor that I work with that doesn't put any titles on any of the emails. And I can tell you that drives me absolutely bonkers, because when you're talking to somebody that's an account manager versus an SDR versus a CSM versus a, tier lead or VP of engineering, the context of the conversation matters. And my perspective is, yes, the definitions and the roles and responsibilities are a little different, or can be greatly different between MSPs or any organization. At the same time, you're also giving the other side, the other person on the conversation, what to expect from it, right? So if you're an account manager, client success manager, vCIO, whatever, I think those are helpful. But Keith brings up after saying our titles are marketing, he brings up, why can't you be a real C instead of a virtual C? I do have a pet peeve with the word virtual, by the way.
I think people are confused, like, because this happened when the position first jumped into the space. They called it virtual when it should be fractional.
Yes.
So it's a fractional CIO that you're partnering out to your companies, just like you could hire a fractional CFO to help you with some of your accounting in your company. It's a similar aspect. vCIO is basically just a fractional CIO. That's how
That's a much better title.
Yeah, I mean, I that's one of the things. Like, if we can just get rid of the word virtual, I'd be so happy. Like, please, it just makes more sense. But that goes with virtual assistants and all the other fun stuff. If they're assisting you, they're not virtual.
But I'm virtual.
You're virtual. So let's see what we got here. Of great. Of course, there's complaints.
What's scorched earth clowns?
Yeah, what is that? That's kind of interesting.
It's tagged business operations, and that's where I'm at.
I'm really scared to bring this up. New small client just notified existing MSP one-man shop they intended to discontinue service and move over to us. They should gratefully turn over everything. How nice would that be? For our review and migration, that they would be paid over this transition, as they should be. Outgoing MSP responded by canceling GoDaddy, MS Tenant, and all services, including the website and domain, and blocking clients' calls.
So this is a vent post.
Well, this is a please consult your lawyer. Have a good day.
I mean, because we know every transition from a former MSP is always smooth, right? Like, that's how it goes.
I don't understand that. This is one of my pet peeves. Like, a client's decided to leave you. It could be entirely your fault, and it could not be entirely your fault.
Right.
However, they're still leaving.
Yeah. Why burn the bridge? I mean,
it's still a potential client down the line, even if, like, they could go there, have a horrible time, and come back. I've seen that happen multiple times. Having them leave in the best of intentions and making sure that they're carried away with white glove service to their new home and dumped on their doorstep will make that in their mind, well, they were so good to us when we were leaving them, and they were very helpful, and like, they're going to remember that. That's the last impression you left on that client. Doing stuff like this just shows what kind of person you are, and
and having a good relationship with the other MSPs in your area is a kind of an important thing. Clients go in both directions in most areas. The last thing you want is to be like the one who was difficult, and then you're trying to move a client the other direction, and they say, "Well, forget you. Good luck."
Quick, you'll get a real big reputation in the industry.
I mean, those clients you guys have had clients come back, right? Like, I've had clients come back before after they left.
We've had them come back
twice or whatever, and and it kind of sucks because we made a policy a little while back, probably 5 or 6 years ago at this point. After 60 days that you're not our client, we delete your data from our servers.
That's fair.
It's a data sanity thing. A 12-year-old company records pile up, and also making sure we don't have access to what we shouldn't have access in case they 100%. They don't change their passwords. But that's bit us in the ass a couple times with returning clients. But
then you get to re-onboard them, as every MSP should re-onboard their clients at least once every 3 to 5 years, just like your end-of-life software or your end-of-life for your desktops and laptops should be 3 to 5 years. You should re-onboard them because your data gets stale.
So talk to me about that, because that's not something I had considered before. Re-onboarding. Matt, you were agreeing with this. Teach me, because teach me in the ways of MSP
So
guys.
I'll let Kyle speak for himself, but we've done this not for every client, but certainly as engineers have churned and account managers and and people who know the environment have churned. It's not necessarily your own data is not up to date as far as what's in use.
Mm-hmm.
Re-audit the configurations. You should be doing that anyway, but re-audit everything and just make sure that everything is totally up to date. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and uninstall your tools and reinstall them. It means just go through and update and verify all of your documentation and configurations and your relationships with the clients, right? Chances are in 3 to 4 years, your primary contact might have changed or some other important decision maker.
Exactly. The goal with re-onboarding is to go through your checklist of your onboarding documents with everything you need. Some, like in the past, like this isn't normal practice now, but a good example is like there's a GPO policy to deploy your RMM software. Like that's agent's going to be like 15 years old by this point, right? With all the updates that happens. So if you go through, update all that stuff that you have, make sure your automation's working, make sure all your clients' desktops are set up correctly, they're on the patching schedule. Make sure you go through your documentation. As Matt said, it gets stale. It's going to just sit there, and someone's going to make changes and then forget to update documentation. Let's be honest. Documentation is the worst part of any person's job. No one does it right, except that one weird kid who sits in the back and just does documentation all day, who everyone wants to be friends with because he does documentation. But he's the only one. Everyone else, like there's been numerous times where you've done a project for someone or you've done a project for a company and you institute this temporary thing, and now that's and then 3 weeks later go by, you forgot about that temporary thing. It's still there. It's not in use anymore, but your re-onboarding would go through and
you struck a nerve with Tim.
Like I said, that weird guy in the back who everyone wants to be friends with, who likes documenting. But you go through and you find that, I left that temporary VPN set up, or that site-to-site VPN set up. Let me turn that off because it's not needed anymore. Like there's stuff like that you're just going to have to just go through, and doing a re-onboarding will help you with your current new future onboardings as well, because you stays fresh. Let's say you go 6 months to 8 months without a new client. That's like you lose all those skills that you get from interacting with people and getting documents and data and going through all of that stuff. It's super important to be able to just go through and double check.
So maybe it's an elderly thing now that I found myself agreeing with Keith. We're close in age, probably within 300 or 400 years, easy. So he talks about auditing. I would call this auditing. We absolutely audit accounts on a regular basis. We audit processes as we do them. Is this I don't want to call it a my market is different thing, but is this your version of vCIO is different from mine? You call it re-onboarding, I call it auditing?
Not necessarily, because the re-onboarding aspect is, it doesn't matter if you have auditing, if you have if you have a SIM or everything's checked and everything's up to date constantly. It's not going to be. We don't live in a perfect world. Something's going to be stale. Something's going to be misconfigured. Something's going to be not set.
BJ says his documentation's perfect.
Yeah. I mean,
you'll miss something, right? I mean, if you're reconciling changes, how often do you find something that somebody did in an emergency, didn't go through change control, and you have to deal with it later? And we eventually created an entire department position, I don't know what you want to call it, called technical alignment coordinator, that went and did this on a recurring basis over basically every client. They just rotated through and checked for things like, do they have, like when we started switching to GP preferences for printer deployments, or when we started doing DFS namespaces for shares, checking if all that stuff was up to standards. And so part of it is not just is every change log, but part of it is if you as an organization have standardized on things, or all of your clients now doing it that way, going back and getting the retroactive stuff. And that's not going to be hit by change audits. That's that's going to be hit with alignment. That's why we called it alignment. And that position generated not just reduced support desk tickets, but also a ton of project work for getting things up to speed or up to standard.
That's pretty high OML. That's kind of crazy. I mean, we do it under the auspices of auditing, but having a specific role to do that. And I imagine that also could feed into your account manager type role should something be different, because we all look for stack alignment. I mean, that's not every client is 100% stack aligned.
Yeah.
But just extra data points to do that, I think that's actually pretty damn cool.
It was another thing that came with benefits of scale. I mean, I know we weren't like the biggest MSP around, but we were pretty decently big and could afford to dedicate a couple people to doing that full time. There was certainly a long period where we couldn't do something like that, and we didn't. We did more recurring type audits.
Speaking of larger MSPs, because both of you guys, Topper, you worked at a large MSP. Kyle, you still work at a large MSP. Sorry, words are hard today. But so let me ask you this. If you're looking, I've been rallying on this for a couple of years now, automation engineers. I call them DevOps. Automation engineers, what everybody else likes to call them, it's the same shit. If you're investing, you're scaling your MSP. Say you're the owner and a handful of techs, and the owner's still doing sales. Are you looking for that alignment person, or are you looking for DevOps?
DevOps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Real DevOps.
Well, it depends. Like, because it depends on when you're looking for that engineer.
Okay.
Because as at a smaller MSP, everyone wears many hats, and hiring a specific person to do DevOps is not going to show the value of someone who can close tickets to a smaller MSP. The value's there, but it's harder to do that with a smaller client base, because the automations that you can do and the DevOps work that you can do is going to be limited by the overall just the amount of stuff that you have. The bigger you get, the more that position becomes invaluable.
Yeah.
And you, at some point, you eventually build an entire proactive department with low-level engineers doing easy things like making sure the backup checks are done properly, or the automation that you have for backup checks is working, and auditing. You go through tickets, like just services off, critical services, like stuff like that, and train them to be DevOps.
So, and I'll bring up Keith's question in a second, or Keith's comment in a second, because I think his leans toward more external automation versus internal ops. My thing was, and your management, your executive leadership has to be able to identify ROI on every employee, right? Whether it's marketing, which is one of the hardest damn things in the world to justify, or internal DevOps, or technical talent. Because I can absolutely. So one of the things we use to correlate tech ROI, and one of the first things we look at for in terms of client success and automation opportunities is we look at the number of new tickets for a new client within the first 60 days. Because typically if there's any kind of configuration change, anything that should have been covered in training, that kind of stuff, that's the easiest place to identify where those opportunities lie. And also gives you the opportunity to see recurring themes, right? To do that stuff. Now, I charge a whole lot as a CCIE. I don't think I've ever charged $1,000 a seat. That's I mean, so do you guys have these kind of roles facing?
He's not charging
to make
money. That's his estimated revenue per hour or per machine on the client.
Oh, okay. You're distilling this down a little bit.
That's how I read it anyway.
Okay. Keith, is that yeah, Keith's thing is developing solutions. Absolutely.
Developing the right solutions though. And so if you were to hire a DevOps engineer early, you need to be able to manage them appropriately. If you hire somebody, they might do something like automate the deployment of a VMware cluster with, every Windows machine scripted, and you do that once every 2 months. So they spend 6 months automating something that you save like 2 hours on.
Yeah, I could see that. And to
That-
YouTube guy,
That's what I
yes,
would do.
we're live. By the way, asking the hard questions, right? So Keith, if you want to share, how you're doing that, we definitely have somebody asking, um, multiples of thousands, which explains his chalet on the water. His cabin is absolutely badass. So what do you say we move on to the next one, which is, if you had to start over, is it worth it to resell Office 365? We're a little under 20 people, have traditionally had clients go direct with 365 for philosophical reasons mostly. However, as we've tightened down security and are pursuing automated onboarding, it seems like the only real way to do this is either move all customer CCs to a non-privileged account. Should have had the foresight to do this years ago, so a non-privileged user can log in and make purchases, or pursue something like ShareWeb or Pax8 so we can handle it as a CSP. Biggest concern, I can see this being more work than it's worth, especially with the recent changes with NCE. Has anyone of a larger size moved back to direct? And anyone still direct thinks it's worth it? That was a mouthful.
Oh man.
The
I
answer
couldn't
is yes.
imagine not dealing with, right? Well, could you imagine dealing with individual credit cards and they forget to
Well,
change it when they renew and all that stuff? That's miserable. And the
at
partner
300,
benefits.
yeah, at 300 plus clients, like I'm not managing that. You can manage
Yeah.
it. I'm not managing it.
Well, and how do you get notices for all that? Like, it's a lot of people to. And don't get me wrong, I'm not of the mindset the MSP has to resell absolutely everything. But Microsoft 365 is like, it's right up there with your
it's
RMM.
required at this point.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I definitely don't see how, there's some things like Acrobat, right? Adobe reseller, if you've ever gone down that path, is absolute misery.
It's pain.
It's pain. Google was pretty bad before. I was a Google reseller before the distributors picked them up. That was also very painful. But I couldn't do 365. I couldn't do onboarding with clients if I had to wait for them to purchase software like that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
We'd have to have
the
access to
AV.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We,
It's so core to how every business works now. Your stuff, the Adobe and like reselling QuickBooks and all that kind of stuff, maybe if enough clients use it, depending on what it is, but something core like that, there's just no way not to.
And you have to, not every MSP does this, but I think most should, is they include a Microsoft license in their monthly recurring per unit.
Yeah.
So that it's all handled, it's all dealt with, and it's just one fee. You can add it into your OpEx for an employee, right? You have a burden cost anyway. Why not just add that in?
So want to take any guesses on what the community said?
It's a good question. We had immediate responses. I'm curious if
I'm going to go with, there's a lot of Microsoft is horrible with NCE, but I'd still do it.
Top, anything of yours that you think to add?
I feel like because we had such immediate responses that the actual answers will be opposite, just because. And yeah, NCE wasn't popular.
And there's still people surprised by NCE, which is amazing to me.
You don't have to like it, but being surprised by it.
Yeah, dude. Remember we put out posts and posts and posts reminding people. Kelvin was doing the same thing. Huntress and tons of other people were putting out notices. And there were still people that were surprised, like months later. I don't know, whatever. So we have 85 upvotes for yes for the license control alone makes it worth dealing with the hassle. Some agreement there. Oh, let's see how bad this was. What?
That's good. They're using the downvote to mean does not add to the discussion. In its purest form.
Okay. The system's working. We got 50 upvotes for we made 100K in incentives from the last 7 years. That's on top of the margin. Incentives were a lot nicer, but as far as I understand, there's still incentives to be had again.
We have anybody taking the opposite position?
That's what I'm trying to find.
I don't think so. It's too many people use it, and it's such an easier system to CSP with someone.
Well, you could make that a month selling beer on tap if you had a pub. Yeah, you could also do it selling or cutting grass. I don't think any of us want to go out and do that.
Or a specific
Um,
website selling pictures.
Oops, sorry. Mod stuff. So um more people happy to spend on their devices. How many seats are you selling to hit that number? It's a lot of questions about that guy making 100 grand.
That's over 7 years. People don't understand. That's over 7 years.
Yeah, but to be fair, last year the incentives had almost all gone away, right? And then they came back.
Yeah, so for 6 years he made a lot of money off incentives.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Let's face it, managed workstations are going to have Office. MSP is expected to manage support it. Absolutely, literally free money. Right. This sounds to me like somebody that's scared of what could be. This is the conversation we see all the time with like ACE versus, block hour, that kind of stuff. And to somebody that hasn't done the all you can eat, doing it seems really scary, right? You think about all the boogeymen that hide behind the corners of, some loud user or whatever. But it's not that bad.
The key to all you can eat support is properly defining expectations on what is a project.
100%.
What is supported?
100%.
Yeah.
Your personal cell phone, just because you can't call into the office doesn't make it my problem.
Yeah. This is live and recorded, so I'm not commenting on that, but I understand where you're coming from, Glenn. Or they could watch MSP Dispatch every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. on this same network. All right. Sorry, I had to plug that. I just tell clients I'm rich, or Gates is rich, I'm poor. Don't blame me.
Except Gates isn't involved anymore.
Right?
He just collects the revenue.
Right.
Yeah, it's Balmer. Not. No, I'm kidding.
No, who is it now?
It's Satya.
Satya.
Yeah,
Satya Nadella.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Google that keeps changing stuff a little too often.
Alphabet, you mean?
Exactly. That's exactly my point. 100%. Let's see here. We got time for more. Let's see.
Hey, Microsoft's not innocent either. Entra ID.
Dude, okay, that stuff driving me freaking. Okay, we reported on it last. What was it? April 22nd. I want to say when it was first announced.
Last year.
Yes, last year.
I want to point that out. Last year.
Yeah. And to prove the point, I'm guessing you didn't see that on MSP Dispatch. I'm guessing you saw it through one of your other news sources, right? I'm not going to get offended. Yeah. So it's okay. But that's my point, though. The point is this information's been out there if you're paying attention. It seems like some weren't paying attention. So for those that weren't, Microsoft is in the middle of renaming Azure Entra, ENTRA. And they started first with the security services. But the first big service to get hit with the name change, because all the other ones really, who cared, is Azure AD, which is the biggest of the biggest.
I just want to point out that AAD was such a perfect acronym.
Right? That's the biggest problem.
Like
EID, that doesn't work.
Yeah. What's EID? Do you have AD or AAD?
Well, and that was another thing too, though. There was like a couple flavors of Azure AD. Nobody really understood what Azure AD was, because then you still had the hybrid stuff. You still and it got. I get it. Microsoft's really confusing, right? I'm not even sure which version of Defender we use at this point. It just Huntress handles it. But that's Microsoft's fault, right? Like, can you blame the MSPs for not knowing that?
There is a website dedicated to outlining Office 365 licensing. If a website has to exist so that people can understand your licensing model and what software package comes with what license, then you have complicated it too much.
You're talking about the notorious M365 maps, right?
Yes.
Which is, I'll put it in the chat, this is one of the better resources. So much better than every other Microsoft. And look, Entra's right there. It's right on the page. So
site's been updated.
July 2023. I don't know how this person does it. Aaron Dinage. I'm going to see if we can get him on the show once. But it seems always up to date.
But that's the point. If a website has to exist, then you're doing something wrong.
I'm not arguing. Not arguing
No,
at all.
it's very complicated.
I'll leave it at there's room for improvement.
So much room. So much room. So this is the article. I put it in the chat as well. The link for anybody that wants to go read it. It's not amazing reading. It's a new name.
That's all they're doing is just renaming it.
Yeah, and they are changing domain stuff too. Like they've added new ones. I want to say it's Entra. And they got their own TLD too. It's not .Microsoft. It's something else.
I mean, they do have that one too, though.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But how cool would have been .aad?
That would have been badass. Okay, they have Entra.Microsoft.com. In the Entra admin, this doesn't say any private information, right? No, the Entra admin center. I'll leave that for Mendy, leaving API
Is it
keys
Entra
on streams
or Intra.
Oh, I always said Entra.
But looking at this, because it makes me think like if they're shortening entrance. It's your entrance ID.
So entra in Latin, in Spanish, French, and Spanish and French for sure. Italian might be very close. Is come in. It is your entrance. It's the base for the word entrance.
So it'd be intra, not entra.
Well, in Spanish, it's entra. Fuck, now I'm screwing my own Spanish.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see if we can find this. How to pronounce Microsoft.
I mean, I get why they renamed it. They're trying to get us to stop thinking about it.
Hopefully they say it.
Cloud-hosted AD.
They're going to say it. Let's see what I can...
let's hear
stop
this.
sharing real quick, and then I can share with the audio. Hold on. Chrome tab, share audio. Let's see what they say.
Coming. Millions of identities and access points exploding into the world every minute. Millions of vulnerabilities. This is only the beginning. And connect across integrated solution point in our connected world.
Actually, I know a little. Let's do it here.
Fearlessly. Tomorrow is here. Let's step into it. Welcome to Modern Identity and Access. Welcome to Microsoft Entra.
Damn it!
Oh. Yes! Yes!
Kyle was right.
Oh, man. We're all saying it wrong.
Oh, you know what? Okay, so we got here today. I learned there's a big partner zip file that documents that it says how to pronounce everything else you need. I just Google. We have to do it a lot also for dispatch. When I don't know how to pronounce somebody's name, we just Google them speaking somewhere. Let's see. It's entra like enter. Damn it.
Yeah.
I'm never going to say that. It's going to take some.
It didn't click until you said Microsoft, like until you showed that screen. It said Microsoft Entra, or Access, and I was like,
Yeah. Okay. Fine. I mean, it's no Yammer, but I guess we'll take it. Are you even? Is this even like on the radar for your staff? Like, other than like, hey, this happened. Do you even care operationally?
We still call our some of our tools by their original names, such as LabTech.
Yeah, well, we've had that conversation before. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's going to be AAD until any other reason to change it. Like it's just going to be Azure AD.
Cloud. Can I abuse your access a little bit and tell us if we're going to get the win with LabTech like we got with Screen Connect? And ConnectWise is just going to rename it back to LabTech.
I plead the fifth on any information.
I have no useful info on this.
I love that we have a ConnectWise employee on here, and then the other guy is wearing the ConnectWise hat. That's pretty awesome.
He's wearing the old logo
hat.
He's wearing the only logo, in my opinion. I'm not the bug is clean, but
it's too
the owl is
minimalistic.
that's OG, dude.
What we need to find is like an owl logo hat.
Yeah. Oh, the original owl one. Like, yeah. So I'm gonna keep looking through here. Anything else you guys want to talk about as we got 6 minutes left? This is one that comes up pretty damn often. Wish it didn't, but let's see. We got when you started your MSP, I'm assuming you started because the other way would be weird. Your MSP, how did you find clients? My brother and I started an MSP about 3 months ago. So far, we had 2 clients. I've been following Tech Tribe, posting LI, Google Ads, sending emails. Also got a list to start cold calling. All the prospects we are getting from are people we know, not from marketing. I'm just looking for advice how to find more clients and get off the ground.
I'm going to.
I mean, I have an answer. It won't be useful because it was our original owner's personal network is how we found our first clients and grew from there.
That's how it generally works. Word of mouth is ultimately the main driver of traffic. Those other methods that are being used will work, but they won't work as efficiently as word of mouth and getting in front of people. Like there was, I think I've seen, like marketing's not my expertise. I stay far away from marketing and sales as much as possible. But some of the advice I've seen in some of these conversations, such as doing a local event, sponsoring a local event for somebody, getting in front of people in verticals, like these companies that are around you. Like if there's always meetings, local meetups, chamber of commerce. There's events happening in your area that you can sponsor, you can put some money in, or you can go to and just network and start building your personal network and conversations are what's going to drive the early business. And like I'm just joking to my wife about my 12-year-old going to have to work because it's a modern day thing, right? You know, I was told to go and shake someone's hand and give them my resume to get a job, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't work anymore. You have to fill it out online. And
It depends on the job. I mean,
99.9%, you still have to fill out the online application. Even if you know someone at that job, you still have to fill in the stupid online application because you have to upload a resume and then fill out the same information that's in the resume.
With SMBs, I don't think that's as true, right? With like the micro MSPs on sub 15 employees. I don't know, man.
It kind of depends. In a lot of cases, you know the person and you get the job through networking, and then as a formality, you still have to fill out the app.
But the point is that going and shaking hands is what's needed to start building your business initially. Yeah. That's still the best method to actually do it. Bigger companies then have the marketing arm and someone specializing in marketing to throw those keywords, to trigger those searches and have a SEO and make your website hit so many hits.
But I don't think that matters though, because, I'll putting my business hat on. I will say the average MSP, the average sub 20 person MSP, 15 person MSP, and even at that size, they're getting their leads from referrals. Mm-hmm. So what you're experiencing is how everybody started out, myself included. That's not a bad thing, because I think I've seen it with my own businesses. If you start going after SEO, if you start going after basically cold leads, right? These are not leads that somebody helped you get past the gatekeeper and it, helped you establish rapport because it's the guy that Zach recommends or the guy that Michael recommends or Sarah or whatever. You don't have that. It is a cold introduction where you have a lot more barriers against you. And the average MSP, I'm going to go on a limb here. If they're figuring this out 3 months after they started their business, I'm guessing there wasn't a whole lot of business plan and a whole lot of plans for how to acquire clients. So if you attract clients in that very cold manner, you're not going to have the skills to be able to close those deals, in my opinion. But that's
a cold call for sure.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's completely fine. Yes. Cold call. Yes, absolutely do it. You have to build up your muscle when it comes to that, right? It's just nonstop cold calling, teaches you to get past rejection and how quickly you can, get the person's attention on the call, get to the right person, qualifying, do the cold calling, don't expect results, but absolutely do it. But also, this level of growth teaches you account management, teaches you how to leverage your personal network, teaches you what's important to people. And then I've always been a big fan of find a vertical, find a niche. And then once you have that niche, hammer the hell out of it until you've saturated it, and then move on to the next thing. So if you're getting referrals from attorneys, you're getting referrals from doctors, stay in there because you learn their PRM or whatever it happens to be.
Learn their business so that you can be that internal IT that they deeply need. And you don't have the disconnect of serving an industry you're not familiar with and having to go, well, let me call the vendor and spend 3 weeks trying to troubleshoot this issue, but because you don't know it.
Yeah, we'll be able to give useful recommendations that fit the way they're actually doing things, not just the guy fixing the copier when it's broken.
You've hit it. You've hit the mark when a client says, "Hey, do you have any recommendations for industry-specific software?" And you go, "You should try this one. This one works really good. This one works good as well, but the support's really not great. So if you have an issue, it's going to take a long time to fix."
And that's the thing, like, being able to be that subject matter expert for them, you can't do that if you're in 15 verticals, especially when you're smart. I mean, some of the big companies, the Team Logics, the Dedicateds, the UDTs, the Presidios, these guys have vertical specific account managers and techs. You can't do that if 10 people. You can't do that if 5 people. Don't try. Be the best you can be at a single vertical. And
don't limit yourself to a vertical, like, because I know businesses who have just only focused on one vertical, and that will make you, but it also break you really quickly if something happens and that vertical starts having a downturn.
It is rare. I mean, the one case I've seen it, and I'm definitely open to contrary opinions. The one case I've seen it is like an investment, right? If you, I have a few friends that all they do for MSP is go after PEs, VCs, smaller group-led ventures, but it's all companies that do investing. It's all money. And yeah, those ride and go, and especially when he caters to those companies' clients, when they invest in a business, they bring in this company as IT. It's kind of business in the box kind of thing. And yeah, if those businesses tend to start failing, that hurts. Absolutely hurts. Have you seen any other verticals that are kind of at risk for that?
Well, it's not just like not specifically in that scenario, but there have been times and people I've worked with in the past who have only focused on one vertical, and a downturn caused them to have much more difficulties in trying to get new clientele, losing their current clients. And like, I'm not saying they went out of business, but it definitely hurts. So I would say, there's other reasons why I would say to diversify a little bit, but don't have every vertical. Have two or three, right? Have specializations in 2 or 3. This way because some of that stuff will cross pollinate too.
Oh yeah.
An expert in, if you have a financial vertical, you can help some of your doctor's offices with, hey, you should use this accounting package. It's really well. There's stuff like that will translate to other areas. You should definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah. Right. So you don't necessarily have to pick a very narrow vertical, right? You could pick
healthcare,
professional services, not finance.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of bleed into each other, right? So if you do medical and then you do surgical and then you do dental, like there are a lot of commonalities, right? You just hit HIPAA on all 3. Yay. But but that stuff does lend itself because they're going to have similar needs, right? Like if you focus on hospitality, but you do like hotels and little hourly gigs and Airbnbs or whatever, that sounds like hell. But from somebody that did hotels, but they kind of lend each other. And you can go to real estate, you go into investment, they lend it to each other. So, and they all know those people. Unfortunately, can you believe it? We hit the hour again. Actually went a little bit over. Kyle, how do you feel about your first episode, dude?
It's great. I'd love to do it again.
Same, man. Same. We'll definitely be bringing more on. How about you, Top? Are you feeling good?
Feeling good. I think this might be the longest conversation that we've ever had, Kyle.
It has. You pop in and then leave. Like it's you're too busy. You come in, say a few things, and you're gone. And then it's just like the ghost of Topper. Just
well, you can always see Topper every Sunday at 7 p.m. on MSP Community Live. I mean, at minimum. All right, guys. I appreciate you. Those of you in the MSP in the audience, absolutely thank you so much. Don't forget, you can join the MMN Discord or reach out to us on MSP Geek or on Reddit or on any of the other 1,000 communities. We're doing this stuff. We have some cool stuff coming up if I could find it. This is why I don't do this anymore. So we have Pidget 2023 Vendor Spotlight featuring threat and compliance risks. Tim was right there in the chat, coming up on 7/18. We have wins and losses. That's myself and Jason Slagle on 7/18, 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 to 8. That is Jason Slagle's and mine and friends' weight loss journey and getting healthy and sharing way too much information. And then we have MSP Dispatch Tuesday and Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern with Tony Francisco and typically myself if I haven't moved on, and let somebody else take my spot. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have an amazing week. MSP audience, have an amazing week. Till next time, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
This has been a broadcast of the